I didn't get an invite to my daughter's wedding, even though I was footing the bill. Now her marriage is over, and guess who's getting the phone call? It's me. I never thought I'd be in this situation, but here we are. Kane, my 28-year-old, didn't want me at her wedding. Just let that sink in for a second. I got the boot from a wedding I was actually paying for. I'm still trying to wrap my head around it all, but I figured maybe putting it all down in writing could help me sort things out, or at least let off some steam. First off, let me just say Kane has always been a handful. We had our share of struggles when she was growing up, but what parent and kid don't, you know? Still, I never thought it would come to this. Yeah, we've butted heads before, but nothing could have prepared me for this. Okay, I'll try to lay it all out clearly. Kane and her fiancé, Arthur, had been together for a few years. They weren't exactly rolling in dough, so when they started planning the wedding, I offered to pay for it. I thought it was a nice thing to do, and I wanted to help them start their married life on the right foot. Weddings are crazy expensive, I know, but since they were having a tough time financially, I thought, why not? It was my way of showing them I cared. I was happy to help, and I thought she'd be happy too. Isn't it a big deal? Your daughter's wedding day is the start of something new for her. I wasn't looking for a big celebration, but a little gratitude would have been nice. Before I knew it, things went completely sideways. I remember this one time, chatting with Kane, just trying to be useful. I was thinking about the seating at the wedding, and I asked her, "Hey, Kane, should I look into getting extra chairs, or are you good on that front?" She barely even glanced up from her phone. She was totally preoccupied. "It's fine, Dad," she said, sounding totally checked out. I raised an eyebrow, a little confused. "Are you sure? I don't mind helping out. I can even pay for some extra stuff if you need it." "We got it, Dad," she said. "Okay," I said, and then she actually looked at me for the first time in a while. I was kind of taken aback. "I'm just trying to make sure you have everything you need," I said. "It's no big deal," she sighed, rolling her eyes. "We don't need you micromanaging, okay? Everything good. We're good." Little things like that just started to build up. I wasn't asking for much, just trying to lend a hand. I just couldn't figure out why she was being so snippy when all I wanted to do was help. A little time passed, and the wedding planning seemed to be humming along. Kane seemed to have everything totally under control. I didn't want to get too involved. I figured I should stay out of the way, and I trusted her to handle everything. But one day, I figured it would be nice to add my brother Louis to the guest list. He and Kane have always been really close, so I figured it wouldn't be a problem. Just one more person, simple as that. When I called the wedding planner to see if they could include Louis, things got weird. The wedding planner's voice got a little shaky when I asked. They paused, then told me the guest list was already at capacity. Seriously? How could that be? It's a wedding, not a crowded concert. You can always squeeze in another person, can't you? I pressed a little, thinking maybe I'd misheard or messed something up. Eventually, after a bit of back and forth, the planner sent me the list. And let me tell you, my jaw dropped when I opened it. I wasn't on there. Neither was Liliana, my wife. I was beyond confused. It had to be a mistake, right? How could my own daughter leave me off the guest list for her wedding? Especially since I'm the one footing the bill, it just didn't add up. So I got back in touch with the planner, trying to keep it together even though my mind was racing. I straight up asked, "Why aren't we on the list?" The planner hesitated again before dropping the big one. They said Kane, the daughter, specifically said not to invite me or Liliana. And to make it worse, she requested extra security to keep us from even getting in if we tried. I was just standing there, stunned. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. My own daughter was planning her wedding without me, and she hired security to block me out. I mean, what the hell was going on? I was furious at that point. I asked the planner for proof, thinking maybe there was some mix-up, some miscommunication or something. But no. The emails landed in my inbox, and it was all laid out right there in black and white. Kane had been scheming for ages, and it was clear I wasn't invited. I just didn't know what to do with myself. I felt completely stabbed in the back. I honestly thought I was doing right by her. She went out of her way to make sure I couldn't be at her wedding. Honestly, it cut me deep. What really hit me was more than just the fact that I wasn't on the list. It was that she had arranged it all. It wasn't a mistake. It wasn't an accident. She actually put in the effort to keep me away, and I knew why. Over the years, we'd bumped heads a few times, and I didn't always see eye to eye with her choices. But that's what being a parent is all about. You try to steer your kids even when they don't want to listen. I kept replaying all the times I was there for her. I was always there for her when school was hard, when she was mixed up with the wrong people, or when things were just plain tough, even when she was mad at everything. I tried to be someone she could depend on, and now she's shutting me out of one of the most important moments of her life. And I'm still not sure why. I don't want to play the victim, but it felt like a brutal betrayal. A cold, calculated betrayal. I've seen her get annoyed with me over little things before, but she always comes around. This time felt different. This felt like the real deal. After I got off the phone with the wedding planner, I just stood there, just staring at the email. I probably reread it a ton, hoping for a clue, something to help me understand, but nothing clicked. The more I dwelled on it, the madder I got. But you know, there was this sadness mixed in there too, deep down. It's tough to explain, but there's this feeling that hits you when you realize your own kid doesn't want you around. I kept wondering what I'd done to deserve this mess. What could have pushed her this far? Sure, we'd bickered, but I never pictured things ending up like this. Blocking me from her wedding, making sure I couldn't even be there. It felt like a punishment. But why? I wish I could say this chapter had some grand conclusion, but it didn't. I was just left in shock, confused, and with a broken heart. I wasn't sure what to do next, but I knew one thing for sure. It wasn't just about the wedding anymore. It was way more complex than that, and I had no idea how to fix it. So after I got my hands on the guest list and didn't see my name, I was completely furious. I couldn't just sit around and act like everything was cool. How was I supposed to pretend everything was all right? Finding out my own daughter didn't want me at her wedding, I knew I had to talk to Kane and figure out what was happening. I couldn't just drop it without getting some answers, so I tried calling her. No answer. Tried again. Straight to voicemail. That's just how the whole day went. I got it. She was busy with all that wedding stuff, but I was freaking out. I didn't even know if I was more mad or hurt, but I just knew I had to talk to her. I left her a message, begging her to call me back. Nothing, just silence. And that silence was killing me. After a couple of days with no word, I'd had enough. If she wasn't coming to me, I was going to her. So I hopped in my car and drove over to her place. She lived pretty close by. Honestly, I had no clue what I was gonna say. I just knew I needed to see her face to face. I thought maybe she could explain things. Maybe we could talk it out. Or maybe I was being naive, thinking she'd have some good reason for all this. By the time I got to her apartment, my heart was racing. My head was full of all these things I wanted to yell, but I had no idea what to expect. I knocked, and after what felt like forever, she opened the door. She just looked at me like she knew I was coming, like she was expecting me. And that pissed me off even more, but I tried to stay calm. I didn't want to start a fight right off the bat, you know? We stood there for a second, and then she just asks, "What do you want, Dad?" Like I was some stranger at her door. I told her straight up, "I want to know why my name isn't on the guest list. Why the hell did you block me from your wedding?" She sighed, rolled her eyes, and said, "I knew you'd find out eventually." Man, that just made me even angrier. I asked her again, trying to keep my voice even, but it was a lost cause. "Why, Kane, why would you do this to me?" I pleaded. She just said like it was nothing, "I saved you the hassle of showing up." Like it was just another boring day of the week. I was about to explode, and she was so casual about the whole thing. "I'll send you the photos if I have time," she said, shrugging like she didn't care. That's when I lost it. I couldn't hold back the tears anymore. "What is wrong with you?" I yelled. I was trembling, full of anger and disappointment. Was this how she really felt about me? After all I had done for her, I just didn't understand. How could a daughter not want her own father at her wedding and then act like it was nothing? But it didn't stop there. She kept going, and it was all negative. She listed off all the reasons why she thought I shouldn't have been invited. She said I was never on her side, that I always went against her, and that I always rubbed Liliana, my wife, and her stepmother in her face. She even brought up old stuff I thought we'd already dealt with. She brought up times she wanted me to stand up for her, but I didn't. Like when she fought with her cousin or when she had problems at school. Truth be told, I couldn't always defend her. She wasn't always right, and I wasn't going to lie for her when she was clearly wrong. I tried to tell her, but she just wouldn't hear it. She was convinced I'd been her enemy for ages, that I'd ditched her, and that this whole wedding thing was her way of getting even. She even brought up things from when she was younger, like that time she got busted with pills. Sure, she'd had a rough time, but I was there for her. I helped her through everything, even when it was tough. I didn't disappear when she needed me. I tried to help her, get her the help she needed, and keep her on the right track, but none of it mattered, apparently. In her head, I'd failed her in every way that counted. Standing there, listening to her just unload all this anger, I realized how much she hated me. It wasn't just about the wedding. I had no clue. She had been bottling up all this frustration for years. And the way she was dumping it all on me now, like it was my fault she was so messed up, was just too much. At some point, I just started crying. I didn't even mean to. It just happened. I practically pleaded with her. "What did I do that was so awful? Kane, why are you doing this to me?" I was hoping, deep down, that she'd feel some guilt or show a little bit of sympathy, that she'd soften even a little. But nope, she stayed ice cold. "You were never on my side," she said. "You always cared more about your new life with Liliana. You didn't care about me." That hit me like a punch to the gut. I tried to tell her, how much she's always meant to me, how much I love her. but she was convinced I'd chosen my new family over her. I just stood there in her doorway, completely speechless, wondering how we'd even gotten here. She didn't want me at her wedding. She didn't want me in her life, period. Nothing I said made a difference. It was like we were speaking different languages. Every time I tried to explain, she'd bring up something else, like she'd been keeping a scorecard of every time I'd let her down. Finally, she just said I brought nothing but negativity into her life, and that I had to go. I wasn't wanted at the wedding or anywhere near her. And if I couldn't accept that, well, tough luck. I walked out feeling completely crushed. I had no idea what to do. My own daughter didn't want me at her wedding. No matter how hard I tried to make sense of it, it all boiled down to this resentment she'd been carrying around for years. I felt lost, heartbroken, and so incredibly confused. After I left Kane's that day, I was a mess. I didn't know what to do, where to even go. The whole thing felt completely pointless. Her words just kept echoing in my head. I tried to stay strong, but I was completely blindsided by how angry she was. I knew we weren't close, but to realize how little she thought of me, that really hurt. A few days went by and still not a peep from her. I was trying to give her room, praying she'd change her mind or at least chill out enough to have a sensible conversation. But honestly, I knew it wasn't gonna happen. The wedding was right around the corner, and I was stuck wondering if I should just play along like everything was okay. I couldn't. I was sitting at home with my wife, Liliana, explaining what had been going on. Liliana's always been super patient with Kane, way more than I ever was, but even she was at her wit's end now. She told me I had to stop letting Kane treat me like a doormat. And she was right. I'd spent so much time trying to make Kane happy and keep things chill between us, but it was never enough. It felt like no matter what I did, I just couldn't win. That's when I made the big decision that changed everything. I couldn't keep footing the bill for a wedding I wasn't even invited to. Seriously, think about it. I was paying for this huge party, including the place and the food, and I wasn't even allowed to go. It seemed ridiculous, and when I really thought about it, I realized Kane just didn't care. She didn't care if I was hurt. She didn't care how much money I'd already spent. She only cared about herself. So I picked up the phone and called the venue. I told them to cancel everything. I knew I'd lose the money I'd put down as deposits, but at that point it didn't matter. That wasn't what it was about anymore. I just couldn't stomach the idea of her getting married when I was being completely ignored. It was awful. I had to put my foot down even though it was killing me. The venue guy was totally surprised when I told him to call it off. I guess it's not every day someone cancels a wedding, especially at the last minute. But I didn't even blink. I told him to tell the caterers, the decorators, everyone, even the wedding planner she was paying. I know some people will say I was being childish, that I should have just let her have her wedding and handled it later. But here's the thing. It wasn't just about the wedding. It was about respect. I was her dad, and she was acting like I was invisible. I wasn't going to stand there and let her walk all over me. I wasn't going to be her doormat anymore. After I made the call, I sat down with Liliana and we talked it over. She was totally on my side. She said something that really stuck with me. If she doesn't respect you enough to invite you to her wedding, she doesn't deserve your money. And you know what? She was right. For years, I'd given Kane everything, always trying to be the bigger person, always giving in. But enough was enough. The next day, everything really fell apart. The wedding planner called, freaking out, saying they couldn't get into the place to start setting things up. Apparently, the venue people had already started taking everything down when Kane found out. I can only imagine what she was thinking. My friend told me it was a total mess. People were totally confused. Vendors showed up with no idea where to go, and nobody knew what was happening. Kane tried calling me, but I didn't pick up. I wasn't up for another screaming match, and honestly, I didn't feel like I owed her anything anymore. She made her choice, and now she had to deal with it. I knew she'd be livid, but after all she'd put me through, I didn't really care. Let her figure it out. That night, she showed up at my place. I wasn't really surprised. Kane doesn't just give up, but I wasn't about to face her and have another argument. I needed some space. So I'd already changed the gate code so she couldn't just walk in. I wasn't hiding or anything, but I wasn't going to let her waltz in and start yelling. I'd had it with her words. She started pounding on the gate for a while, screaming for me to come out. I just sat inside and listened without saying a word. There was nothing left to say. She made it crystal clear where we stood, and this was my way of saying I wasn't going to keep letting her walk all over me. Finally, she gave up and left. But I knew it wasn't over. Later, I talked to my parents, and they weren't thrilled with how I handled things. They said things like, "It can't be that hard on your own daughter." Parents should never abandon their children, no matter what. I got where they were coming from, I did, but they had no clue what I'd been through all these years. They hadn't seen her constant disrespect, her total sense of deserving everything, or how she treated Liliana and me. They thought I was being too hard on her, but I wasn't budging. I was done letting Kane get away with her stuff. The whole thing left me with a bunch of emotions. On one hand, I knew I'd done the right thing, standing up for myself. But then again, she was my daughter, you know. No matter how much she'd hurt me, I still felt a twinge of sadness. I kept thinking, did I take it too far? Should I have just let her have the wedding and dealt with it later? But then I remembered her looking me dead in the eye and saying she didn't want me there. That was when I knew I couldn't keep doing this, sacrificing myself for her. So that's how it went down. Kane's wedding was a mess, and I wondered if we'd ever patch things up. But at the end of the day, I had to look out for me. I needed to keep my sanity, even if it meant losing my kid. And honestly, I don't regret it. I figured there would be some fallout from canceling the wedding, but I never imagined everything would go to pieces so fast. The wedding planner called me, totally freaked out, the day after I canceled the venue. He started out okay, trying to explain what the problem was, but he was clearly losing it. The place was already shutting down, and the caterers and decorators couldn't even get in. Turns out when they got there that morning, security showed them the cancellation email I'd sent. That's when it all just blew up. He called trying to see if there was any way to fix things, but I was done being nice. I just laid it all out for him. I wasn't paying a dime. The wedding could go to hell. As far as I was concerned, it wasn't happening. He stammered, trying to get me to see reason, but I wasn't changing my mind. I'd made up my mind, and I wasn't backing down just because everyone else was freaking out. He kept going on about how the vendors needed to get paid and how we could still fix it if I just paid the rest of the bills. I cut him off. "That's not my problem anymore," I told him. "You'll have to talk to Kane about it." Then I hung up. I felt a little bad for the guy. He was just doing his job. But this whole mess wasn't mine to fix anymore. Kane had made it clear she didn't want me involved, so I was giving her exactly what she wanted. I wasn't going to be the one putting out fires anymore. I didn't hear about what happened next until later, but apparently when Kane showed up and found out everything was canceled, she absolutely lost it. I mean, a total breakdown. From what I gathered, she got there thinking everything would be all set, but the place was deserted. No tables, no decorations, no food, nothing, just a locked gate. And a confused security guy wouldn't let her in. She tried calling me again, but I'd already blocked her number. I wasn't about to deal with another screaming fit. I guess she thought I was just saying stuff or that I'd chicken out at the last minute. But when she realized I was serious, things went south fast. When security said no entry, she totally lost it. I heard she started yelling at the guards, insisting on getting inside, even threatening to sue the place, which, let's be real, wasn't going to do a thing. She tried to force her way in at one point, and the guards called the cops. If Arthur, her fiancé, hadn't shown up just then, I bet she'd have been arrested for trespassing. He managed to calm her down right before it all went to hell, but by then, the damage was done. Her dream day was officially ruined. While all the craziness was happening there, I was home, waiting for the inevitable. I knew Kane wouldn't let this go, and she showed up later that night. She was banging on the fence, screaming for me to come out, but I stayed put. I'd already decided there was no point in arguing anymore. We were done talking, completely finished. I could hear her screaming, going on about how I'd messed everything up and was just thinking of myself. Half of me wanted to go outside and try to explain, tell her why I did what I did, but the other half knew it was pointless. Kane had already decided how she felt about me ages ago, and nothing I could say would make a difference. So I just stayed put and let her storm off until she finally gave up and left. Once she was gone, I sat with Liliana and we talked it over. Liliana, as always, was on my side. She kept telling me I'd done the right thing and it was about time I stood up for myself. But I couldn't help but feel torn up inside. On one hand, I knew I had to put my foot down. Kane's behavior had been out of control for years, and this was the breaking point. Still, I couldn't shake the guilt of ruining my own daughter's wedding. As the days went by, the story spread through the family about what happened. I hadn't said a word to anyone, but it seemed Kane was going around telling her side to anyone who'd listen. I immediately got calls from family, asking why I'd done it, why I couldn't just let her have her day. My folks were really bummed out. They didn't agree with how Kane treated me, but they thought I should have just let the wedding happen and then dealt with it later. Later, I tried to explain it was about more than just the wedding. It all came to a head after years of her disrespecting and hating me. I couldn't keep being the one to clean up her messes, especially since she clearly didn't want me around. I told them they just didn't get it. They saw it as just another stupid fight between a father and daughter, something that would blow over. But for me, man, it was way bigger than that. It felt like a total turning point, and I was completely lost on what to do next. The rest of the week was quiet. Kane didn't reach out, and neither did I. I tried to process everything, but this awful guilt kept eating at me. I kept wondering, was I being too hard on her? Should I have just sucked it up and let the wedding go ahead? I talked to Liliana again, and she reminded me of all the times Kane had walked all over me and how I'd always given in to keep the peace. She was right. I spent years doing everything for Kane, bending over backward. And what did it get me? My own daughter left out of her wedding, one of the biggest days of her life. There's a point where you just can't take it anymore. I remember how she looked at me that last time, so cold and distant. And I knew right then there was no arguing with her. This wasn't just some little spat. It was years and years of anger and resentment exploding. And it was clear she wasn't going to back down. So yeah, that's how it went down at the wedding. It wasn't pretty, and it was definitely not easy. Look, I had to put my foot down, you know. Even though it felt terrible, I just couldn't let people keep pushing me around anymore. Things got really ugly after that, but it had to happen. Then a few months later, this number I didn't recognize called. It was Arthur, Kane's husband. My stomach clenched. I was terrified something had happened to her. He said she was okay, but she wanted to talk to me in person. Whoa, that threw me. I asked why, and he just said he'd explain when we met. He was in town and asked if I was free for dinner. I said yes, secretly hoping it meant Kane and I could finally make things right. I figured she wanted to see me but was too embarrassed to reach out herself, so Arthur was stepping in. I went, really hoping for the best. I mean, I'm her dad. But then I got there and Arthur was all alone. When I asked about Kane, he said he had no idea where she was. My heart just sank. I asked what happened, if she was okay. He told me they'd separated. Then he dropped the bomb. Kane was abusive, seriously abusive. He said she had these terrible anger issues, throwing and breaking things, even over little stuff. He said he'd stuck it out as long as he could, but he finally had to leave. He said she had some kind of mental health problem, always blaming everyone else for anything that went wrong. We were constantly at each other's throats because Arthur had to move far away for a job that would be good for him. It didn't change anything for Kane, but she hated the idea of moving so far. She found another job making the same money in the new city, but she still hated the whole thing. And that was only the start of it. Kane was always losing it with Arthur, and they were always fighting. He said there was another reason he needed to see me face to face. He wanted to say he was sorry. He told me he'd seen Kane being violent with me, Liliana, and even my folks, but he didn't do anything because Kane had turned him against us. He said he'd brought all the pain on himself because he ignored all the red flags. I told him it wasn't his fault, it was Kane's. Maybe I'm partly to blame for not being able to raise her better. I also said I was sorry for what he went through with her. Then Arthur asked for one last thing. He said Kane was really upset about the breakup and begged him to come back. But he said he couldn't, that he didn't love her anymore because of all the abuse. He wished her well, but he was done. He asked if I could try to reach out to her and help her through all this. He said she really has no friends anymore because of her attitude. He told me she doesn't have any actual friends who stick around. He wanted me to get her to therapy or do anything to help her. I said I wanted to, but she wouldn't let me get close to her. He understood, and I got it too. We both really wanted to help Kane if she'd let us. After I got the whole story, I knew I had to see her, just like I figured I would. She totally went off on me and Liliana. I went alone, though, because I didn't want Liliana to see Kane lose it like that. I tried to apologize, hoping to calm things down. Honestly, at that moment, right or wrong didn't even matter. She was in a really bad place, and I just wanted to be there for her. I told her, "You can yell and scream all you want, but you need to see a therapist." She wouldn't listen, just started bringing up old stuff. She screamed that she hated Liliana, wanted to kill her, said she didn't want us at her wedding because she was so ashamed to introduce Liliana as her stepmom. She was ashamed of Liliana, ashamed of me marrying her. She wouldn't hear a word I said and threw me out, blamed me for everything that was wrong in her life. I stood up and said, "Look, I tried, but I'm done. There's a limit to how much I can take, and I've hit it. Have a nice day, Kane." Then I left, slow and steady, didn't even look back. No slamming doors, no yelling, I just walked away. There was nothing left to say. She'd made herself clear, and so had I. It's been 2 years since then. In that time, I've fixed parts of myself I didn't even know were broken. I stopped making excuses, stopped trying to justify things. And most importantly, I gave up hope. If anyone even mentions her, even in passing, I just shut them down. I say, I'd rather not talk about it, and that's that. I don't owe anyone anything anymore. I'm good, finally at peace. I sleep like a baby, you know. Liliana and I are still together, and that's everything. A couple of days ago, Mom called. Her voice was all soft and careful, like she was walking on eggshells. She said, "Gavin, Kane's in a mental health facility." "You should know." I just listened. She went on all hesitant like, "She's not doing well. They say she's really struggling." I didn't say a word, then she finally asked, "Do you think you'll go see her?" I paused, not because I was unsure, but just to make sure she got it. I said, "No, not anymore." There was this silence on the phone, but I didn't fill it. I've spent way too much of my life trying to fix things that weren't my mess to clean up. And it's not like I'm saying this out of anger. It's just acceptance. I tried, man, I really did, over and over. But trying turned into just trying to survive, and surviving turned into giving up. There comes a point where you've just had enough, you know? And for me, that point was a long time ago.